Well, I grew up right here in the Scotland Neck area. Grew up on a farm, and my dad farmed for a living, and so that's what I did pretty much every day that I could. I probably was always interested in farming at a very, very early age. I'd say 6, 7 years old. I mean, I always wanted to be with my dad wherever he was at, riding on farm equipment. Whether it be riding in dump trucks hauling grain to the market, or actually mainly being out on the actual tractors themselves.
Probably when I was younger, my favorite part of growing up on a farm and favorite thing was riding with my dad, and actually he included me and letting me help work on the farm even when I was little, picking up tobacco sticks and tobacco leaves, and making me feel useful. And I just any time I spent with my mom and dad on the farm was probably good memory. And even though a lot of times it was hard work, it was just a lot of fun too.
Ever since I can remember, my dad grew peanuts. My grandfather grew peanuts before that, and there's always been peanuts on this farm, except for a few years where either the price was too low or just needed to get out of the peanuts for rotation's sake. My grandfather farmed here for probably 50 or 60 years, and then my dad came back home after the Coast Guard and farmed for about 30 years until health issues caused him to have to retire from farming. And then when I got out of college, I started back farming, and now I farm part-time. And my son has come back home and is doing most of the work now. Well, I think he loves playing in the dirt and running machines.
We've been farming in the area for a long time. I really love it. I reckon it's in the blood around here. I have a lot of friends around here that have stayed to farm. We seem to be a pretty tight-knit group, about the same age group of people, and we all love it. There's a lot of things that I enjoy about it. I could not sit at a desk all day.
It's changed a little. My daddy did grow tobacco, and I haven't grown tobacco. I do grow peanuts and cotton.
I've been growing peanuts, I'd say for probably 15 years now. Strip till, just like I do, my cotton and soybeans.
The biggest change we've had is using reduced tillage. The new tilling system is actually less tilling. There hardly anybody around here discs their land anymore, and hardly anybody uses a bottom plow anymore.
This piece of equipment here is a KMC strip till rig, and it's got these ripper shanks on it that are actually going through the soil, providing, I guess you'd say, a channel for the root system of the crop to go in. And then immediately tied to this is the actual planters that actually place the seeds in the ground and wrap them up, and it's all done now in one application. We're definitely helping the environment with this type of farming, as well as our own pocketbooks, because we don't have as much fuel being spent burning the tractors. There's no ways as much labor involved in trying to get a crop in the ground as what it did years ago.
There are some newer technologies with the equipment, as far as auto steer, and some really exciting things with GPS. You can still farm without all of the computers.
I don't have any new technology, but I have ridden in the tractors with it. It's a miracle of modern science for farming. The GPS systems now, they will put the tractor in the field, keep it on a straight road. They have auto steer in them also, so when you get close to your line, the GPS will take over the tractor and steer it as it's going down the road. One of the biggest things I've seen, and the reason I would like it to get the GPS, when you're digging peanuts, one of the hardest things is sometimes you can't see your rows because the vines are so thick. With a GPS, you will stay dead on the road, and it has shown in studies to increase your yield because you're staying on the road and not knocking peanuts off.
At one time, there were enough peanuts grown in Halifax County to fill up about 8 of these warehouses like this. And now there are enough grown to fill up maybe 2 of these. When the peanut program involved a quota system for the state of North Carolina, the majority of the peanuts were grown in a 9-county area in the northeastern part of the state. Within a 10-mile radius of right here, there were probably 4 or 5 other peanut buying stations, and that's now dwindled down to just this one in a much bigger radius. And I get peanuts now from as far as 100 miles away because we transport them in semi vans that we weren't using, 20, 15 years ago.
With cooperative extension, I started in 1994. I think today we probably have around 175 actual farmers in Halifax County. When I started then, it was probably close to 300. Fewer farmers, but as the fewer farmers we have, they'll work a lot more acres.
Now, if anybody's growing peanuts, what's happened since they've done away with the quota is we've kind of been on a roller coaster ride of supply and demand. It comes down to simple supply and demand.
Last year it was kind of like the perfect storm. 2 years ago, in this area had a good crop of peanuts, but across the peanut belt there was a lot of places that didn't, and there were not as many peanuts planted. So some people who had peanuts that weren't contracted were able to sell their peanuts for $4,000 a ton, which is a lot.
Well, what that created was a false impression among some growers that they were going to get $1,000 a ton the following year.
We had a really good crop. My understanding is that there were about 1.1 million acres planted in 2011, and in 2012 I believe there was about 1.6 million, along with the highest yields we've ever had in the country for peanuts.
All the added extra acres plus a record peanut yield has produced a glut of peanuts. So our contract has fallen back to $540 with a designated cut in acreage by the sheller.
It's hard. It's because you never know from year to year what you're going to be able to count on the contract being. I haven't bought a lot of new equipment, and because you're scared to a certain point if you go out and make a lot of investment, things might change. You don't know that you're going to be able to grow peanuts next year if they don't have a good contract price. And so if you keep your overhead low and you can go into it and sit out a year if prices aren't, where you want them to be, then, you're better off.
By not having some stability within the market, like through a farm program that could kind of manage the amount of crops we grow, that sometimes hurts us. I mean, that's free enterprise. It worked, through, I guess you're balancing supply and demand issues there, but it makes it tough on us from one year to the next when we invest heavily in certain type of equipment, anticipating, let's say, growing a lot of peanuts, for example, and then you have an overproduction of peanuts, and the next year they're cheap and you can't afford hardly to grow them.
I just enjoy peanuts. It's one of those crops that you have to love working with, and I think Daddy was a good peanut farmer, and I learned a lot from him, and it's just a crop I really enjoy. I enjoy scouting it and working with.
A fresh dug peanut right out of the ground. It's the best thing in the world.
I love to eat peanuts. I like them raw, I like them boiled, I like them shelled, I like them chocolate covered. Any way you can fix a peanut, I like it.
I don't know if you've ever had boiled peanuts, but if you haven't, you need to try them. A lot of folks are kind of grossed out by them because they look slimy and all that, because you're boiling the shell and all in obviously salty water, and but they're delicious.
I love peanuts. I love to eat peanuts, yeah. I eat them raw in the trailer, when we're harvesting. And I can remember when I was a little girl, and I used to crawl in the peanut trailer when my daddy was picking, and he would put a couple of dumps in, and I was sitting up there eating the peanuts, and I can remember telling him that he was going to have to go pick some more because I was going to eat all those. So